you shouldn't have completely opposing personality in your design compared to your messaging. It should be cohesive because they work together. As much as we don't want to judge a book by its cover, we do. We absolutely do when it comes to business.
Welcome to Swift Coaches Academy, a podcast dedicated to bringing health and wellness professionals the uncensored truth behind what it really takes to succeed in the health industry with me, your host, Xenia Wood. As an accredited exercise physiologist and business owner for almost a decade, I'm on a mission to transform the lives of ambitious health professionals like you who want more and are ready to take action to create incredible impact in your careers and unlock financial freedom in your business. So join me as I speak candidly with industry leaders about the struggles and successes from within the trenches through thought-provoking conversations.
Xenia's conversation in this episode is with Ceara MacGuire, the brand designer behind Swift Movement and Swift Coaches Academy from Wild Cove Creative. Today's chat is all about explaining what branding actually is, beyond just a pretty website and a cool logo, and the potency of blending branding with strategy. If the words brand identity, brand personality, and brand polarity seem a little foreign to you, you're in for a treat with today's episode.
Ceara, how are you?
Hey, doing good. How about yourself?
I am, look, it's been a week. Actually, last week my cat went missing.
No.
And yeah, it was actually like the most crazy 24 hours because I went from someone called me and was like, so there's this cat on the side of the road. I just need to let you know that she's not alive. And I was like, oh my God, I literally, I was like, immediately I went to my boyfriend. I was like, I think my cat, I was like, I couldn't even get my words out. I was like, done. And I was like, my cat's dead. She's on the side of the road. So
oh my God, that's heartbreaking. I would be in tears immediately.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm fine. And then it was in shock, panic, stress. And then someone else was like, oh, we think we've seen this cat. And it wasn't our cat. And then I got this call and they're like, oh, I have Yoshi here. And I was like, oh my God, we need to go now. So it was from elated to severely stressed, anxious. It was a week.
Yeah, no, that sounds wild. I'm so glad that Yoshi's okay though.
Oh, yes. I think you don't realize how much you love your little furry friends until something like that happens and you're like, oh, wow.
No, they are I will say this with conviction that having a child is so much like having a pet. Now that I have a child, I feel like I can fairly say that because honestly, there is so much that I do with my baby that is a lot like I do with my dog. And when children learn recall, it's the best.
Anyway, let's not dive too much into pets and babies today. Ceara, as my brand strategist, web designer, fucking powerhouse woman that you are, I found you on the interwebs.
Yes.
I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now, back when you were living in Canada.
A while ago, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what I need, but I need help because my website sucks. And I, like most people who probably come to you, I did it myself. And it's got one headline and a book button that's broken.
Yeah.
So from that to the website that we have now, and then the rebrand of Swift Coaches Academy, I would love to dive in today, give some really solid advice on branding, on strategy, why it's important, for non-techie people who are doing their own design, where to start. Why don't you start with, I guess, your story of how you got into this and what you do, who you work with now, because it's pretty niche.
Yeah. I have a bit of a wibbly wobbly background when it comes to getting to design. So I have a bachelor's degree in architecture, which is where my background in design comes from. It's a bit of a unique way to get to brand design, I suppose, because obviously architecture, brand design, very different ends of the design scale. But while I was studying to become an architect, which I never finished, I worked as a personal trainer. So I was employed by the university, worked as a personal trainer. I got lucky. I was doing a sports science elective class, and from that they offered me a job. So I worked out well. And then from there, I was just so ingrained in the fitness industry. I think I spent 6 years as a personal trainer. And throughout that, I got to know a lot of people within the industry. Being working at the university, I worked with people who are like yourself, really enjoy learning about health and fitness and the body. And it gave me, I think, a better background in being a personal trainer than if I had just done my PT course and gone to work at the gym, because I had all of this PhD level people riffing off me at the gym, which was great. And then I moved to Canada, and that's kind of when I started getting back into design. I was working at a ski hill, as everyone does in Canada. I had to leave my personal training business and everything behind in Australia, but I wanted to do something on the side. Anyone who's worked at a ski hill before knows that you make nothing. So I was doing design work on the side, kind of taught myself a bit of brand design. I had learned all the programs through my degree, but all of my design knowledge was just a different end of it. So it was really great to learn a bit more about branding. I've obviously invested a lot in myself for education to increase my knowledge around brand strategy, especially. It was one part of design that I always had trouble with. Like, I've got quite an analytical mind. So it was always really hard for me to focus just on the creative aspect of things. I found that before I studied brand strategy, being a brand designer and not having that background, there's a lot of assumptions made. So when you're working with clients, they can tell you what they do, what they want it to look like, and you can kind of just create something, but you're assuming that you know what they want. And then there comes a lot of back and forth with that. When I started learning brand strategy, it started connecting that analytical and creativity for me, which was amazing, because all of a sudden my design had purpose and it was really easy to communicate. So no longer did I just assume that I knew what to look for. It was these conversations with my clients where I found out, first and foremost, who their audience is, because that's the most important aspect, and what they're trying to say to them.
So why don't we back up a second? Because I feel like if I'm listening to this and I'm a health professional, I'm like, what the fuck is brand strategy? And what does it mean? Isn't it just design based on like purple makes you feel this?
Yeah, that is a very common misconception. So branding, the way I've best heard it described, is brand is not what you say it is, it's what they say it is. So it's the way your business is perceived. And you don't get to decide that. Your audience gets to decide that from every point of contact they have with your business. So branding is the art of influencing that. And when you have a brand strategy in place, it's like having a business strategy, right? You have a roadmap for where you want to go and how to get there. So brand strategy is not just creating brand identities with like logos, colors, and fonts. Brand strategy is looking at your business and who you are, why you exist beyond just making money, and where your business plans to go, what you do in your business day in, day out to achieve that, and then what makes your business different. Why are you unique? Why should someone come to you as opposed to any of the other options that are out there for them? How do we make you stand out? And then how is that expressed through your language and your messaging, but also through the design and the visual identity of your business?
Okay, so I think it might be helpful to even like run through an example with my business, because people hopefully would know like the branding behind that, or would now know the new colors and the things that we've done with Swift Coaches, being like that splice color and things like that. So am I right in saying, I guess it's a combination of really understand who you're speaking to, why you're different, so like your unique selling proposition, articulating that, but also like I think what I figured out working with you is like, okay, if you want something feminine, you probably want maybe more a cursive font or a softer pink or something like that. And I know that we were like, oh my God, I definitely want to work with men and women. I don't want like any soft colors. So we went like hard shapes, hard edges, like really bold fonts, like edgy kind of look and style and vibe. And you were like, don't use circles and like soft lines and curves, like use sharp like stars and jagged things, because it represents not only like the kind of like bold persona that me and an extension of me being my business represents, but also it helps with branding or like identity of like the person that I want to work with is not just, you know, a female, which being a female, but also coaching males and females. And we have, you know, it's pretty even 50-50 split. And I love, you know, gender is not part of my, my avatar.
Yeah.
So I think that finding that balance was really helpful for me. Is there anything I've missed in terms of like branding or design that kind of links in with the strategy that we've done with my brand?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, like you mentioned, that looking at the different shapes and the colors that we use, we wanted it to be very balanced. So we had to have both masculine and feminine aspects. And I'm sure listeners are probably wondering, like, what makes it feminine, what makes it masculine? It's so funny that we can feel these things without knowing the purpose behind it, like the reason that looks masculine, the reason that looks feminine. And it just comes down to knowing, the shapes, the lines. When it comes to feminine branding, it typically will have thin lines. So like with fonts, you're looking at like thinner lines that have roundness to them. They are fuller, more curvy. And the same thing with the shapes. They're typically more circular, oval, really organic shapes, and they're more fluid. That's more feminine. And then everyone knows like colors, right? Pink is more feminine than a blue, but then it also depends on the shade. Like a pastel blue is not a very masculine color, whereas a deep blue is. So knowing these different elements and things that make them look more masculine and feminine will help you attract the right people, because when we look at it, we know what it feels like. But creating it from scratch is the strategic part of it, is knowing which elements are going to attract that kind of person.
And then also, like, do you want contrasting colors or do you want like complementary colors, and where do you place those as well? So, I mean, obviously that's probably diving more into the design side of things, which is, you know, like what's your Instagram palette or whatever, but that's kind of like surface level basic bitch version.
I think we take the value of design for granted. So especially when we make a lot of our purchasing decisions based on design. They just released the new website design statistics, and they discovered that I think it's 94% of purchasing decisions are design related, which is a crazy number. Like, you know, it's high, but like that's so high. And I know that, like, obviously we take it into account when we're looking at brands for ourselves. Like, if you're looking for a service and you're scrolling through websites and you see one come up and it's got this crappy website, immediately you're like, you don't take it seriously. The value of it is immediately diminished. In comparison, if you open up a website and it's got beautiful branding, it's easy to use, the perceived value is higher and you take them more seriously. You're more inclined to work with them as opposed to this crappy DIY one that you found.
And just on that too, I've found that to be so true, because I was like, oh, what can a website do? Like, I was like, fuck, Kira's like going to cost me a bit to get like, I wanted like a whole fucking full suite, you know, obviously. But I was like, this is quite expensive for what before I understood like how much depth. And I was like, I can do it myself. I was like, oh, Kira, I need your help with everything. Yeah. So like when you actually get into it, when it's not just like, oh, here's how to book now, like you want to actually tell a story and everything, there's so much to it. Mm-hmm. And I've told you this before, but I've actually had so many people comment. They're like, oh, your website was better. That's why I booked a call with you. Yay. Or like, and literally one client who works with us for a year has paid for what your services were to create like a full suite website.
Yeah.
Like that's not even like a little like sales page or anything like that. So for me, once that happened, which is hard because it was only after the fact that I was like, fuck it, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. But once I saw that, I was like, holy hell, like I need this in my business. I didn't know how much I needed it. So for anyone who's maybe on the fence, and absolutely it's an investment, you absolutely don't need it. But when you are looking to scale, when you want to grow, when you're looking to look more professional and actually show up and have that presented everywhere, because we know how we do one thing is how we do everything. So like you said, you got a shitty website, maybe you got a shitty service, right?
Yeah.
So if you take time and effort and care into the website, that's generally the first point of call. So that's like the first meet, or like the first, before they even actually speak to you. They may, particularly with a service-based industry, it's more intent-based marketing. Like what I mean by that is interruption-based marketing is Instagram. Like you're just scrolling randomly. You're not searching for anything with intent. You're just kind of looking through things, where intent-based marketing is like you say, where is the nearest physiotherapist to me? Like that is, I need a physio. Like you have got intent to purchase because you're looking for that. And so for websites, a lot of the time it comes through like Google, right? Or potentially socials. And they might have seen you there too, which is why probably integrating it helps. But with that, if it's coming through a Google search, and you, particularly if you are like a bricks and mortar business and things like that, I think that can be really helpful to have that first interaction before they interact with you personally, to be a wow experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the website that we created has really done for our people. And then it also just like debunks all these myths and adds in, like there's so much to it that I guess when I was working with you, I was like, oh yeah, a website. But then when we really spoke for like an hour and a half, I was like, bitch, why didn't you tell me all of this shit was included? Which I know that you do now. But like in terms of like speaking for like an hour and a half, going through like, no, who are you targeting? How are you targeting them? And I just felt like after that call, Ceara, I was like, holy shit, she like knows my business better than I do. And I think that is how I describe brand strategy. It's like intuitively understanding, like I know that she is a fuck yes for this and a fuck no for that. And these are the people she wants to attract. And I could directly speak to that client, which obviously probably comes in a little bit of like copywriting and stuff as well. But like the messaging that you're sending comes through the brand copy or the content or the text, as well as the colors and fonts.
The brand personality should be consistent across everything. Like you shouldn't have completely opposing personality in your design compared to your messaging. It should be cohesive because they work together. As much as we don't want to judge a book by its cover, we do. We absolutely do when it comes to business. And you are more likely to attract more of the clients that you love working with when you have a brand that actually speaks directly to them. And that's the difference that a strategic approach to design has. It's that before we even start designing, we know who you're talking to, what you want to say to them, how you want to say it, and why they should be choosing you over anyone else. Like what makes you stand out? Because especially when it comes to health and fitness businesses, it's not just a matter of like, oh, I'm competing against, if you're a physio, I'm competing against other physios. It's I'm competing against all other allied health professionals that can solve this same problem, because a sprained ankle can be solved a million different ways in the health and fitness industry. So you have to look broader than just your immediate competition. You need to have a very clear point of difference as to why they should be coming and seeking specifically you, as opposed to anyone else they could go to.
I love that. And that's, I mean, we didn't really touch on it before, but like, obviously you said your background in PT and now you're a web designer. So now you web design for fitness industry or health specific businesses. So that's your like USP, right? Yeah,
exactly. Well, and that's my point of difference, is that I understand the business because I've had the business. I understand the cycles you go through, the pain points that you're experiencing. Like I know what it's like to do those 6 to 9 and 5 to 9 shifts in the day and then have that big break in the day. I understand what it's like accepting any client who comes your way just because you need them, as opposed to attracting people that you love working with and people who are willing to pay a higher price. And so much of that comes into branding. Like you really increase your perceived value when it comes to brand design because you look more legit. You've invested in yourself as well. And the same thing goes like your coaching services. You know that when people are investing in you, they're going to bump up their prices, right? And that's the biggest difference I've found
absolutely.
with all of my clients is that after we work together, they increase their prices because they know that they can. And then they immediately get that return on investment. I think when they did this study, on average, $1 invested in website user experience made $100 in return. So, yeah.
Wow. Is that over the lifetime or like in a year? Like what's the duration of that?
That is a good question. I wish I had dived deeper into finding that out, but I think that's very possibly lifetime. But I know that in a year, I've had clients that have made their investment back 10 times over in a month. So it can be immediate. It also depends on your execution, right? Like I can do all the work for you, but if you're not applying the design principles we put in place, it kind of falls straight away. But
well, you still need to bring traffic to that site or be consistent in it and over your social platforms or wherever else your branding is showing up. So, you give more than enough tools in the toolkit to be able to execute on that. And it's just about then, and even like, I know that you created for me, like, example like Canva templates for Instagram stuff, and so I can just like copy paste, rinse and repeat that. So that I found as like a really helpful, like that's just like a little bonus, like not even included in like the actual thing that's getting you the ROI through sales pages
promise,
or
over deliver.
actually content. Yes, always. All right, so let's give some actionable or some like thought-provoking questions for people in terms of if they're like, I don't have a fucking clue, like are there certain questions that you always go to help people understand maybe their brand personality?
Yes, definitely. So the first thing is know who you want to work with. That's the biggest thing. Honestly, in terms of branding, that is like my biggest focus. So not just knowing who it is. Like you can be like, yeah, I work with, postpartum women, but knowing what they're dealing with. So their pain points, the emotions that they experience around that, because that's going to have a big impact in the way that you present your offer. So yeah, knowing who you're speaking to is going to be the biggest thing, because you need to understand what they're attracted to. It's like going on a first date. You know pretty much straight off the bat whether or not you're going to click with a person based off their personality, right? It's the same thing with business. So you want to display characteristics within your brand that attract the people that you want to work with. So displaying those characteristics comes across in like a brand personality, and understanding what they're looking for from you is a big portion of that. So if, for example, they're looking for freedom, or maybe they're looking for confidence, you want to show them that you can help them reach that. So knowing who your target audience is, how do you want them to feel when they interact with your brand? So if you want them to feel supported, you need to have a brand that feels supportive. So it should have like warm colors, for example, because those feel like a warm hug, right? And colors play a big role when it comes into that. The easiest thing you can do is come up with colors and fonts that are going to support your brand personality. And like we spoke about before, if you're going to have a feminine brand, you're going to be using fonts that are thinner, more elegant. Script fonts are really common. I can say serif, sans serif, but people aren't really going to know what I'm talking about. So let's just say script fonts to start off with, because I feel like that is one that people understand. When it comes to colors, if you're looking for feminine, you want to go for those pink warm tones. They feel very feminine, as opposed to colder, deeper tones feel more masculine. And just pay attention to how you feel when you're looking for these things. So if you're going to DIY your brand and you're choosing colors, sit with it for a second, look at it, say, does this feel the way I want my audience to feel when they're engaging with my brand?
Something that I found that really helped as well with that was asking others, like, does this make them feel, and how does it, how does it sit with them, and, does it feel like a strong or like a soft kind of vibe, or like, is it a bold or a weak or a, supportive or a like really authoritative or whatever it is? Like, give some options and be like, which one does it kind of feel like? I think sometimes we can get a little like colorblind, and we're like, no, but my favorite color is green.
Oh my gosh.
And you're like, just want to.
That's the biggest thing that I try to drive home constantly is, in all my presentations, I will say specifically, step away from what you prefer, put yourself in your audience's shoes. How are they going to see these concepts, and how are they going to perceive this brand identity? So yeah, you really have to put yourself in your audience's shoes and step away from your own personal preferences, because as a designer, if I'm working with you, I could care less if you like what we're doing. If it's going to connect with your audience, then that's the direction we want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to leave you with that. I feel like that was, yes. Just shut up and do what Kira says. That's the moral of the story, because you always just work your way back around to the start again. You're like,
that's it. I mean, as much as like, it's nice, obviously you want to have a brand that you love and you feel confident in, but if it doesn't communicate anything, then it's honestly a waste of time. If you spent all this money to hire a designer to just like, what do they call it? It's like they're just going to
just like tell you what, like, and just repeat what
you exactly. Like, that's not why you hire a designer. You hire someone who is an expert to provide unique insights that you can't provide yourself. Because if you were going to, you may as well just DIY it.
And I feel like on the topic of designer, I think it's important, like you said, obviously ROI can be huge on this sort of stuff. And it's also everlasting. It's not like you have to pay brand upgrades every single month or anything like that. It's kind of like unless you're going to rebrand, it's like a one and done thing, and then you've got everything and you can use it forever. Kind of like education, right? Like, you can't have that ever taken away from you. And so investing in these sorts of things absolutely are investments. I feel like when you start out, you're like, oh, that's a luxury to have, like, a brand designer, like, seems like really super fancy. But when you get down to the like nuts and bolts of it, understanding that brand, like you said, 94% of first impressions come from the brand. If you don't have, or also like, I think some of the things that I find is that the brand is not even like shown anywhere. Like, maybe they're like, oh yeah, my logo is orange and black, but I like look at their socials, I look at what we talk about, I was like, I can't see it fucking anywhere. Like, it's on your website in the corner. And so it's like, the other thing too is, if you're going to show up consistently, and if it's going to be in an email or an Instagram or YouTube or wherever you're doing it, being consistent with that so that you become recognized for those colors, those fonts. I think that's huge. Like, when you see those same people on Instagram that show up and you're like, oh, like, you may not even really know like what they're called, but you're like, it's that long green font that takes up the whole screen. You're like, I know who that is. And therefore you have an affinity towards it. It's a no like trust factor, and then you want to read more of them because you're like, I know they put out good content. I think that the brand speaks before, or you almost see the brand before you see the business name or the logo. And so to have consistent colors, especially if someone's fucking scrolling, like, attention spans of, I don't even know how short it is these days, but like, if you see something and you're like, oh, that green color, like, that's something that I like, it just continues to reinforce that when you are consistent. Yeah,
and that's brand recall. And that's the whole point of being consistent, is that people should be able to tell your brand without even seeing your logo. For example, like, if you went onto, like, say, like Frank Bod, if you went onto their website, you don't need to see their logo, do you? Because they use the consistent colors, fonts, and like the squiggles and stuff. You know it's them. And it's brands like that have a really big impact, and they have a lot of brand loyalty because they're recognizable. And like you said, they build trust through consistency.
Yeah. And then if you're consistently building trust through your colors and your fonts, that bleeds into you must be a trustworthy brand. You must be a trustworthy business. You must be, a great service. And these are like subliminal things that we don't actually consciously, you're not like, oh, I came to them because they had pink in their logo and I like feminine things or whatever. It's like you just recognized over and over and continued to,
exactly.
That's really
and
cool.
Your brand identity can say a lot about your business, and it will define whether or not people want to work with you. Like you said, like someone might want to work with you because it's feminine. Someone might not want to work with you because it's feminine, and it will really polarize your audience. And a lot of people have a really hard time sitting with that because they're like, oh, but I want to help everyone. Well, no, like if you speak to everyone, you speak to no one, right?
If you help. Yeah. Yes. I was just going to say that. Absolutely. I was going to say like the fuck yes, fuck no lists that I have. And I think being polarizing also means you have higher like people are going to be really drawn into you. And then the people who aren't are just going to fuck off. And that's actually what we want. Because then they spend less time on your ads or if you're paying for anything. And so you actually don't have to pay for as much because they're unsubscribing, whatever. You want people to either be like, I'm hooked on your every word or like, I don't like you. The people who are indifferent, no one remembers. You remember Paris Hilton. Like whether you love her or you hate her, do you know what I mean? Like you remember Trump. Like people love them or hate them, but they have an opinion. And I think that the people who do best in business are those people. That's not saying that you have to say outlandish shit that you don't believe in just to get, notoriety or make something go viral. It's just to say that we all have strong opinions. One thing I'm going to add in terms of like actionables that people could do is to literally sit down and regarding your business, write a fuck yes and a fuck no list. For example, my fuck no list is one-off exercise sessions. I'm a fuck no for that. Because I'm like, how am I going to give anyone any sort of result? I haven't even tested you. Like, I can't get you a result in one session. Like, this isn't fucking like surgery where it's like one and done. This is going to take some consistency and some time. So I'm a fuck no for one-off appointments. And I know it's same with the coaches stuff. Like I'm not going to give someone one education session, one business mentoring call. Like I don't do that because I'm like, I'm not going to get you anything. You're going to waste your money. I'm going to waste my time. Like we're not getting anywhere. So I'm like a fuck no for that. And then what else? Are you like a fuck yes for anything that you're like,
that's a good question. I mean, I feel
it's
like
easier
to are a lot easier. I'm like, fuck no, like same thing, not logos, because again, you don't get any real value out of one thing because a logo is not a brand. I'm like, my time is wasted, their time is wasted. When you have like a cheap DIY brand or you let these people in when you're not polarizing, you attract those people who are going to like really battle you for your prices, and they're the worst. Like they're a big fuck no for me. Is anyone who tells me I'm too expensive, then okay, you're not my person. Like that's not a big deal to me. They're easy to let go because the people that do value what you do will pay a higher price because you have that thing that they're looking for. Like it's the same thing with niching down, right? If you're just serving people in one particular demographic or one scenario, you are very valuable to that group of people because you have a specialized knowledge as opposed to.
And then everyone else is like, she's a fuck no. But
then you don't have to take on as many clients because you are charging less people more. They feel empowered to spend their money with you because they know they're getting their value. And the other one, everyone else can fuck off.
And then you can also... And then you can also spend your time actually deep diving on research based on them, and you really know that type of person and their likes and their dislikes. You can speak to them better. You can do more for them in terms of creating additional products or services and selling them. I think one thing I was talking to a mentor in our call, mentee, in our business call the other day. They were like, oh, I think I'm going to create this other product for this whole other like market or this other avatar. And I was like, back up. Like, please do not do that because you're just diluting what you're doing, and now you're becoming, this is what I do, not who I serve. And it's so much easier to serve one person in multiple areas, i.e. how we serve coaches through exercise education, and in the fitness industry through, or health industry as well, through business. It's like, it's still the same industry, the same niche, the same person, serving them in a different way. And then trying to think about, okay, well, what do, you know, like retirees want versus what do 20 somethings want, and their needs and how you talk to them. It's totally different, which is actually, good segue, why we split Swift Movement and Swift Coaches Academy for the branding, and why we did a rebrand, because they're different people. They want different things in their life. They're looking for
different things from you.
You know, and and so the different branding too. And I'm also probably a much stronger voice on the coach's side of things in terms of what I will say and my beliefs and things like that, because I understand that the market that we have for Swift Movement Academy, they are typically the 30 to 50-year-olds who are really hesitant or nervous about exercise. And if I was like, just fucking move, like, you'll be fine, they'd be like, whoa, I tried that and it didn't work, so please don't. And so, you know, the way that you speak to them is different, and you have to so that brand personality would be a little bit more
softer and more supportive.
I guess softer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And absolutely, I mean, I'm not supportive in the business stuff, but the way that I do that is just
like
in a different
authoritative
format,
kind of
I guess.
Leadership role. And that needs to come across in your branding, right? It needs to be stronger, more impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, I don't know, authoritative, but I think like leader, yes, but it's also like strong. It's we believe what we believe, we say what we believe, and that's the way that we're going to build strong, successful businesses. We set boundaries. We're not people pleasers. We, you know, those sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, which is, if you haven't got that by now, hopefully we've had like, hopefully the people who are still listening are like, I'm a fuck yes, and everyone else is like, just stopped listening.
Well,
they're like,
and that's exactly why like cheap DIY brands really do you a disservice, because your perceived value is lower because you don't look professional, you don't look like you take yourself seriously. But, you know, and it's the same thing with you. If you're not going to invest in yourself, why do you expect people to invest in you? And you're going to attract more of those really crappy clients who are going to battle you on your prices, make you feel crap when you work with them, and that you just straight up don't enjoy working with.
So what would you say to someone who's like, okay, I think I definitely need some help with this because I definitely know that my brand personality isn't very clear, or like my identity, and maybe I could use some work on my what my people need, and really articulating that. What would you suggest are some possible like next
consultation call with me?
Oh yeah. Outside of that, because that's the obvious, and let's give them some options, because I know you have some. So if you are ready to do it, I cannot recommend Ceara highly enough. She has literally done and redone my branding so much, and just, you know, even the things where she teaches you how to then go and edit your website yourself, that I don't know if other brand designers or strategists would do that, because they're like, I want to keep it and I don't want to share any of my secrets, because you're going to have to pay me the next time when something fucks up on your website that's like one button, I'm going to charge you $500, which is bullshit. Ceara doesn't do that. She's incredible. So absolutely, if you're looking and ready to get some support with like actually leveling up your business and taking it seriously, do that. But you do have some other options for people who maybe aren't there yet.
I understand that not everyone has the budget or are ready for professional design services. So that's why I built my DIY branding course base. It is not just DIYing and showing you how to like pick colors and make a logo and stuff in Canva, whatever. It is actually educating you on the strategy behind creating a brand identity that attracts the people you want to work with, increases your perceived value, and has you stand out in the industry as well, because that's the main thing you want to drive home, is that you want to stand out. Otherwise, like you said, people will scroll social media and they're just going to see more of the same crap. So understanding like, who your audience is, who you're competing against and why you're different, and then being able to communicate that. So we cover everything from your brand, who you are, why you do what you do, who you're competing against, why you're different, who you serve, and then expressing that with a messaging strategy and a brand identity. And we're currently even working on website templates to add into that as well. So there's lots of things coming up for people who are not quite ready to invest in professional design services. Base is already live and it's there ready for people who,
amazing.
Yeah, can't afford or aren't prioritizing outsourcing their design right now, but want to DIY it better and actually have some impact with their DIY efforts.
Yeah. And this isn't just for web design. This is for across your whole, like where everything is
because
seen,
not
right?
everyone's audience is going to exist just purely online. There are lots of people who work with, for example, like there's a lot of allied health professionals that do work with the older clientele. They're not on Instagram. So, don't waste your time trying to market to them on Instagram. It's, you need to understand where they're at and being able to put your brand out in the different ways so that you are recognizable to your audience where they are.
Cool. So BASE, BASE, like the word base is the name of the program, just to clarify. I'm assuming to get like a base foundational epic amount of
there's so many
branding.
reasons I chose BASE. First off, it's branding and strategy education. So, acronym.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Also, it's the base of your business. The whole point of brand strategy is to create a foundation. And I like to explain it like your core for exercise, right? You can absolutely go in and start training and start lifting heavy weights. But if you haven't built up your core first, your foundation and your foundational movements, you're going to get hurt. It's going to be a lot harder to progress. And it's the same in business. If you haven't started with the foundations of your brand, then absolutely, you can go out on Instagram and start posting whatever colors and fonts you like. It's going to take you a lot longer to get to where you want in your business. And there's going to be a lot of slips and falls along the way.
I think, the one thing is you don't realize how important branding is or how much of a difference it can make until after I'd worked with you and I saw the results and I was like, holy fuck. So take it from me that this shit fucking works and is literally just makes everything so much clearer. Kira gave me clarity on my business as a whole, not just brand or what we perceive as like design.
And that's what you get in BASE as well. It's not just looking at, creating a brand identity for yourself. It's looking at your business and actually creating your own roadmap. I go through the same steps that I would do myself with a client in BASE. So it's covering your whole brand strategy and how to build that yourself in a way that's digestible as well. Like don't worry, it's not going to take you a million hours. It is self-paced. Videos are like 3 to 10 minutes long each. So it's nice bite-sized pieces. It's digestible and it is actionable. There's a workbook to go along with your videos that gives you steps to take at each module so that you are actually going to finish the course with an executed brand strategy and brand identity, not just, some mythical knowledge of I could do this someday.
Yeah, love that. I love that. All my courses are workbook, downloads, templates, plug and play, like as much as you can. I'm trying to like do everything for you other than like what your business is. So that's awesome. And Kira kindly told me that for our special podcast listeners, we're going to do 100% off. 100%. Wow. I wish we could do 100% off. $100 off. She's great, but she's not. We're not. She's not free because she's fucking good at what she does, and it's worth paying for. $100 off of her course. And so we're going to drop the link in the show notes and also give you the course coupon code. And that is actually going to expire in 2 weeks from now. So if you're listening to this episode, see when the release date is. We're going to make sure that it expires in 2 weeks. You can still grab the course. You'll just miss out on $100 discount. But yeah, we will pop that.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to sweeten the pot a little bit more and also offer a free one-on-one consultation with me for all these people who sign up within that 2 weeks. We will go through the course and what you've learned together so I can help you create your brand strategy if you're having any trouble with it. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. There you go. Fucking thank you. That's generous of you. I love that. Thank you so much. I say thank you on behalf of everyone who's excited to do that. Cool. Where can people find you? How can they book this in? What's your brand name? We haven't, we would have mentioned it at the start of the
Wild
episode.
Cove Creative. We are based in the Sunshine Coast currently. You can find us on Instagram, wildcove_creative. Our website is wildcovecreative.com. And you can find Base through our Instagram link in bio, but also wildcovecreative.academy will take you directly to our sales page, and you can read all about Base there. I'm also on Pinterest and Facebook. Just search Wild Cove Creative. They are a little bit less active, so the best place you'll find me is on Instagram and Threads. How good is Threads?
Oh, yeah, I'm on the Threads too. I don't know. I like to be like pre-planned everything and get everything done and then not have to deal with that. But, you know, I'm on there. So
yeah, I feel like it's very chaotic kind of in the moment stuff. So that's kind of why I like it.
Yeah. I think it's the very real, raw, like...
I think it's giving brands a really unique opportunity to connect with people on a human level, and I think that's what people are looking for more than ever right now. So it's a very powerful asset for brands who have become more disconnected from their audience.
Great place to go. Yeah, well, we're on Threads as well, so follow us there. Until next episode, thank you so much, Ceara. I am, yeah, of course.
Thank you, and you as well.
See ya.
Did you find something valuable in this episode? If so, I'd like to ask a tiny favor. If you have 30 seconds now, I'd love you to follow or share the podcast. That way, we can continue to bring you more real, raw, and uncensored stories from industry leaders. We also love hearing from you and what you loved about every episode. The best way to reach out is to DM me personally on Instagram @SwiftCoachesAcademy. Until next time, and in whatever you do, move swiftly.